Welcome to Kyle and Dave versus the Machine video edition. Dave, we are this Friday going to be talking about A Clockwork Orange, one of Stanley Kubrick's, what many people call masterpieces. Definitely it has infused itself into the popular culture. No matter what you think of the film, there's no way you can say that this hasn't become this cultural touchstone. But, quick overview, what are your thoughts on A Clockwork Orange?
It made me feel sick.
But wasn't that the intention of the artist, Dave?
I'll tell you what the intent of Stanley Kubrick is he's a pervert. We did review one of his films last year.
Yeah, you loved Eyes Wide Shut. You loved it.
And
you gave it like a 4, didn't you?
Kyle invited a guest, and because he's an asshole, he brought this guest. She's never seen it, so he just threw that in her face. And let's just say she was not pleased.
Not enthusiastic, which, I mean, kind of fair. To be honest, Dave, Clockwork Orange has always been this weird movie for me because it has definitely been revered and talked about and used as like this great example of using hyperviolence, but like, you know, commenting on like the damages of hyperviolence. Like that is, I feel like, the conversation that gets thrown around this movie. I never had a deep-seated love for this movie. I watched it years and years ago as a teenager, and then again I think as a very young 20-something, but it's never been something that's like stuck with me, like, yes, this is like the pinnacle of cinema, this is something that I love. I can't understand honestly anyone who would actually use those words, like love coming back and revisiting this movie, because like you, it makes me feel gross after watching this. It makes me feel uncomfortable. There's elements of it that I actually do like and respect, but then it gets drowned out by, I truly feel that Stanley Kubrick missed the point of what the book was trying to say. And I do not think that the movie communicates what he thinks it's trying to say. Yeah, it kind of rubs you the wrong way. This is the first time, by the way, kind of a spoiler for our podcast, the first time that I've lowered my grade after talking with Dave and a guest.
Yeah, as we'll get into when you listen to the audio full episode, the insight that our guest Jennifer Sanford, Sanford brings, both as an intellectual, Harvard-trained, politically charged woman. This is not a great film for her to like, but also as we all discuss the somewhat historical intent of the author, which is also debatable because it's just such a weird book. But there's supposed to be undercurrents of, you know, comments on society and violence and the media and totalitarian governments, all this shit. Stanley Kubrick doesn't get any of that. And there's a little bit of history with American publishers and American culture, if you can even call it that. Americans, not
well,
good.
I think something that we have been discovering, I find, especially in 1971, is that unpacking like the backstories of like how this movie was made, what it was based on, the culture at the time, how it was responding to that. Oftentimes, the story behind the making of the project is actually more interesting than I think what the project eventually becomes. And I think that that is kind of true about this one too. Like learning the life of Anthony Burgess, what Stanley Kubrick was going on in his life at the time, the making of this movie is like awful to read about, but it's like talking and discussing about that, I feel is more interesting than being like, well, let's sit down and view A Clockwork Orange again, because it's a tough watch.
Yeah, if you're looking for rape and murder, this is your thing. Otherwise, just note Stanley Kubrick. Keep saying Kubrick. Always correcting me.
It's my weird Canadian accent.
He
sorry.
Pulled this from the theater because of copycat crimes, which is disgusting. Also, it was not released publicly until after he died. So it's not even just like they took it out and put it on DVD.
Well, not after Kubrick died. I don't think
it was
that's
2000,
true.
I think.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
I thought it had a home video release before then, but maybe I'm wrong.
We should have researched that before we did this.
Yeah. You might be right in theaters. You might be right for theater releases. But
yeah, actually, it must have been seen. When did The Simpsons parody
it? It was definitely in the 90s when it happened.
These eye clamps are the only way I can tolerate today's TV.
We get into a bit of the idea of how a piece of art is meant to be, how it's interpreted from other people, and how that reflects on society at large. Mm-hmm. And this one really shines a light on how gross people are, and I didn't like it.
I mean, yeah, and I was medium on it, so like that's as positive as I can be. I use a different movie that I don't think is like the best as far as an analogy goes. The example of this that does it better is Fight Club, because Fight Club, also based on a book, also inspired copycats, but inside the text of the movie, it is very obvious where the filmmakers land on what you should believe in Tyler Durden. Yes, some people have mistaken that and like made a life philosophy out of it that is so counter to that. But you can't go to the text and be like, well, look at this. Like, this is ultimately what they're saying about the resolution of that. Whereas I don't think in The Clockwork Orange that ever has that conversation. It is just there to be bold, brash, and provoke people.
Being gross for gross sake. Not a fun watch. Anyways, we've talked too long.
Yeah, let's go make some soap out of people, Dave.
Wrong movie, but let's go
right,
put a dick on our nose. I just...
Whoa, okay. Welcome to my teens, but okay.
Yeah, so check it out. It releases on Friday of this week, in which you're watching this.
In that you're watching this.
You're watching this. Let us know what you think, because if you are an apologist for this movie, we want to know.
We're going to put you on a list. We're going to berate you. Yeah.